Throughout the years, climate change has been a topic of discussion in politics and even in our home state of California. As Americans, we are becoming more aware of our environmental contributions to climate change, whether it be our carbon footprint, emissions, or even environmental policies that have come to the forefront thanks to environmental activism. A particular policy I believe that would help and remediate atmospheric climate change would be the United States adopting a strict carbon tax that levies corporations, big corporations like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nestle, those types of corporations with huge factories all over the country. Climate litigation has been met with controversy due to many people not believing in the science or by saying that climate change is or the climate of the earth is constantly changing. However, when evidence is proven how the climate has gotten hotter and hotter because of human pollution, there is no debating. It is time for action before it becomes too late. For some insight, climate change, or as many people call it, global warming, is a term to describe the long-term and irreversible effect on the Earth's climate due to natural and human-caused events. And a carbon tax is defined as a core policy for reducing and eventually eliminating the use of fossil fuels whose combustion is destabilizing and destroying our climate, according to carbontax.org. Climate change is accelerated by human actions which include incineration, the use of landfills, overfarming, habitat destruction, and deforestation, along with many other actions. Additionally, emissions are caused by greenhouse gases, which are gases that trap heat, such as CO2, methane, and even ozone. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, I want to delve into the history of climate justice and policy, and how did climate change become a topic of discussion. Starting in the 1800s, scientists realized and were concerned that humans produce carbon and greenhouse gases that could collect and fester in the Earth's atmosphere. Additionally, in 1820, a French scientist named Joseph Fourier defined the greenhouse effect, where he proposed that the Earth's atmosphere acts like a greenhouse, wherein it traps heat and it won't be able to escape the Earth's atmosphere. Similar to what happens in a greenhouse when the plants create gases, it becomes very foggy inside. That's what the Earth's atmosphere acts like. Then, in the 1950s, scientists began scanning CO2 in the atmosphere and in the air. The chemical, or CO2, they found a lot of CO2, which is the name for carbon dioxide. And that was the first evidence to prove that greenhouse gases collect and stay on the Earth's atmosphere. To the 1980s, to present time, climate change has accelerated to unimaginable rates. Climate activists like Greta Thunberg and even Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and international protests like the Time's Up protests, which I was able to attend, have pressured legislators and politicians to do what's right for the planet's well-being, a collective well-being, which is for all of our lives and even the endangered animals that are dying due to climate change. Many policies have been implemented and proposed in the past, such as the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Climate Accord, which are big topics of discussion recently due to the 2020 election debates of the U.S. not being compliant with the Paris Climate Accord. We are one of the only countries that isn't signed on to it, which is very sad because we are a industrialized nation, and all of the other industrialized nations in Europe, for example, are already on the Paris Climate Accord, which is to decrease national greenhouse emissions and to just decrease carbon footprint and emissions for a whole country, which the US should participate in, since we're one of the biggest polluters in the world. And some other acts that have been environmental justice legislation would be the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act, and even cap and trade legislation. The Clean Water and Air Acts were very important. Also, the cap and trade legislation, which is very similar to a carbon tax, which is however, the cap and trade is more about economics, whereas a carbon tax is for saving the environment. Therefore, I strongly believe that we must punish or tax corporations that are accelerating the effects of climate change. According to Greenpeace.com, some of the biggest polluters, like I said earlier, are Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Nestle. As corporations are being taxed, they will also be required to switch to clean energy to reduce the combustions of natural gases, and to avoid paying the tax over a long period of time. So if they pay the tax, and as they're paying the tax, they can change to cleaner burning natural gases, or even natural resources. They could use hydraulic, or they could use wind energy. That would be clean burning energy without polluting the environment. So they could do that over time besides paying the tax. This is more beneficial than a cap and trade policy, since it is more about cutting emissions and not about revenue. This would have a two-part plan: taxing the corporation on greenhouse gas emissions and a tax on gas-powered transportation for their products. Additionally, there would need to be an agent of action, which means that there would be someone appointed to punish corporations if they fail to pay the tax. For instance, if Coca-Cola refused to pay this carbon tax, instead of paying 1% of their total revenue for the carbon tax, they would have to pay 50% of their total revenue. As companies continue to be defiant, the tax will steadily rise. This would probably have to start with individual states before getting to the federal level, since all states have these large-scale polluting companies operating in their states. America is one of the biggest polluters in the world, and we need to take action before it gets too late. We are in an era where America and the world are going through massive changes and paradigm shifts. As we see our beautiful planet degrade because of our actions, we must do something before it's too late. And with an aggressive policy like a carbon tax, I believe we will start to see how we can save this planet that we call home.